What is up, everybody? DanDanTheFireman here. We talked about progressive brake pressure yesterday in our classroom setting, and now we're actually out here on the range. And we're going to focus mainly on the front brake because what we learned was that with cruisers especially, 70% of the braking power is up front, 30% of rear, and then once the weight transfer goes, then it starts more like 90-10. On sport bikes and bikes with higher center of gravity, you're going to have a lot, if not 90% of the brake pressure up front. So we need to utilize as much as possible, but do it progressively. Do it nice and easy and smooth. You can do it fast, but let's do it smooth. So we're going to be going over the practical portion. So let's go ahead and move closer to this. So we're going to practice like we play. I'm going to be using my gloved hand, okay? So typically we're going to be, flat-wristed, hand on the throttle, okay? An emergency situation comes up, and in a lot of the crash videos I go over, so if you missed any of those, I do them during the week, but a lot of the crash videos I go over, they go like this, and grab and squeeze. Now that is a grab and then squeezing as hard as they can because of a panic. What we want to do is progressively brake. So we're going to reach for it and squeeze, and then harder. You notice how that was slow. It was smooth though. With practice, you're going to be a lot faster. So it's going to be squeeze. That is progressive brake pressure. Think of this as a 1. Okay, all the way to squeeze as hard as you can is a 10. Okay, what we want to do is squeeze 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And what we're doing when we squeeze smoothly and we're allowing that 1 to 10 is that we're putting weight on that front tire. We're preloading the tire. We're getting it ready to apply the brakes. We're doing that to the front. Why? Well, it's because when we start to slow down, our front suspension starts to compress. When it compresses, our body weight and the bike's weight moves to that front tire. When you have a lot of weight on something, it's going to apply friction. You can actually do this at home right now if you're at a desk, or you can stand up and do this with me. So if you're going to be using your foot, use your foot. Pretend my right leg is your right hand. So if you're doing it on a desk, put your hand here, and then that's what we're doing. So right hand, right leg. Okay. So when we're accelerating, we're taking all the weight off the tires, basically. You still got contact patch, but the suspension is extended, so there's not a lot of weight on that front tire. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pretend my right leg is my bike. My left leg is just going to support all my weight. So I have no weight on this right leg, no weight on your hand. And what you want to do is now we slam the brakes. Look, we have no traction. Slippery slidey. We don't like that. Same thing with your hand, no traction. Now put a little bit of weight on your hand or a little bit of weight on your foot. Now this is that progressive brake pressure. So this is that 1, 2, 3 part. So we got a little bit of weight. It slides, but it's a lot harder. Same thing with your hand. Now I'm going to stand straight. So I got 50-50 weight. We're about 5%. Okay, we're at number 5 out of the 10 progressive brake pressure. It kind of wants to stop, but it still will skid a little bit. Okay, same thing with your hand. Now if we're doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, now we're about 8. So I got about 80% of this weight my weight on this leg. So now, if I try hard, it could still skid, right? So now let's put 100%. So 100%. It doesn't want to move, okay? That's the whole point of progressive brake pressure. So I'm going to do my hand and squeeze at the same time. So right now, no weight, no progressive brake pressure, slam the brakes. A little bit of brake pressure, so a little bit of weight. Started to preload the tire. Still wants to slide a little bit, okay. A little bit more, preload the tire, 8%, 9%, 100%. Okay, so now let's put it in full motion. So I'm starting to squeeze, starting to slow down. Now I'm really stopped. So once again, here's another visual representation. I'm going to grab it from underneath, but typically you obviously do that. So I'm going to grab it underneath so you can see. I see a hazard, or I see something that I have to stop. Now, I'm not going to slam the brakes because that, with my foot, not enough friction on that front tire, it's going to slide out from underneath me. That's what you see in a lot of crashes. So when I see something, I'm going to squeeze, and once I feel that weight push on that front tire, I'm going to squeeze harder. I'm going to show a demonstration really soon, but this is the biggest thing, is that you squeeze, and as soon as you feel that weight transfer to that front tire, you squeeze more and more, and before you know it, you're going to have 100% traction for deceleration, and you can stop, okay, without a skid. If you start to skid and you start to feel yourself skid, or you feel the ABS kicking in, then what you want to do is release a little bit and then reapply, okay? That's what you want to do. And ABS does work really good. It's just that you don't want to rely on it all the time. You actually don't even want to try to kick it in. You want to progressively brake better. Rider aids are awesome, but they don't do absolutely everything for you. So right now what I'm going to do is demonstrate stopping, okay? I want you to focus on my front end suspension to dip, and then you'll notice I'm grabbing even more and more brake pressure. You have to wait for the weight transfer to the front for you to apply the most brake pressure. If you apply most of the brake pressure first, you're gonna slide and then you're gonna have issues. If you want to practice this yourself, be sure to do it slowly at first. 10 miles an hour is plenty, and I don't recommend going above 20 in a parking lot. So watch the weight transfer and then you'll see me start to apply more brakes. So I'm gonna do 15 miles an hour. Squeeze, 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 squeeze. You see that bounce? That right there is once I felt the weight transfer go, I squeezed even harder and it fully compressed, and then I stopped. There was no sliding. So let's do that one more time. There you go. I waited for the weight transfer to move forward, and then I applied even more brakes and stopped. Okay? This is what I want you to look out for, is that part. That right there is when I applied 10 out of 10 brake pressure, when I knew that the front tire had weight and traction. We're gonna do one more time. There we go. Let me go ahead and move this bike over here because this is a very important part that we discussed in the classroom, but I want you to have a visual representation of what it is, and it's keeping your handlebars straight when you apply the brake. So it's not only just progressive brake pressure, you have to have those handlebars straight, not turned, but straight, okay? This is something that you can practice out in a parking lot or anywhere. I do have a set of cones that I absolutely love, but I'm out here at Ride Arizona MTC and I could utilize their cones. So if you want to know how to get some cones, I have a link in the description. It's very easy to get. It's basically those football collapsible cones. Okay, so we're out riding and something happened. Okay, there's something in my way. I got the tripod and the camera right here in my way. I need to apply the brakes. Now, I'm applying progressive brake pressure. I understand it. I know how to do it, but my handlebars aren't straight, okay? Let's show you the right way. So we're gonna move forward, handlebars are straight. I see something, progressive brake pressure, squeeze, 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 and there you go. Now I'm gonna do a quick grab so it can show you an exaggeration. We're not going so fast, I'm still gonna have traction, but quick exaggeration. Here we go. Going fast, quick grab. You see the suspension dip? You see it go down? That is very important, very, very important. And that's why you wanna keep your handlebars straight, because you're gonna bounce up and down, not side to side. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna be like, oh man, I gotta swerve, I gotta brake. I did both at the same time. Don't do that. We'll go over swerving at a different time. Now we're gonna have somebody that's like, oh man, I gotta swerve, I gotta brake, and I'm gonna do both at the same time. You do not want to do that, and we'll go over swerving in a different lesson. But right now we're gonna focus on braking. So let's say I swerved and braked at the same time. So I'm gonna swerve left, and I'm gonna apply the brake at the same time. See this all the time in crashes. Swerve left. See how it wants to fall towards me? That's typically what happens in a slow speed incident. So when you're doing your U-turns or you're doing anything, practicing, you have your handlebars turned, you slam the brakes, you tend to dump the bike. If you're doing it at high speed and you turn, slam the brakes, that front tire is gonna wash out and you're gonna fall down. We see that all the time in crashes. So once again, handlebars straight, progressive brake pressure. I'm gonna slam the brakes just so you can see the suspension. But remember, like I was doing it side to side to side, progressive brake pressure, okay? Here we go, square it up. See that? Very good. Now you can do this with ABS, traction control, all those different things, but here's the thing, practice like you play. If you ride around with ABS traction control, practice with ABS traction control. Don't turn them off. Try your best to stay within the ABS, don't try to activate it, because ABS will still let you skid your tire. It skids, doesn't skid, skid, doesn't skid, skid, doesn't skid. That's what it's doing. It's not stopping and getting stuck. So you want to try your best not to activate ABS. If you want more of a classroom setting, I do have yesterday's video. It's going to be right here at the top right. Check that video out, or check out some of the videos on the bottom. I picked those just for you, okay? With that said, hope you guys ride safe, be safe, and make sure you check out a class at RideArizonaMTC.com if you want to do an MSF BRC1 or even an advanced rider course.